Welcome to Reunite with Self podcast. I'm your host, Rukan. Here, we will be discovering and unraveling what is truly holding you back. We will put the puzzle together and give you clarity on how and what you can do to create massive shift in your life so you start creating the life you always envisioned for yourself. There is no more waiting. Whether it is liberating from dysfunctional family patterns or parenting tools and tips that actually make the difference, we will be diving into the truth and core of things that are simple and which yet no one talks about. I will be sharing with you all the things that would have changed my life massively if I heard any one of these episodes. A new world is awakening, and true bliss, harmony, and peace is possible on this earth. And my mission is to bring you closer to that, one step at a time. In this safe space, I will hold your hand and give you courage and certainty that you can shift anything and everything in your life. It is time we break the pattern. Whether you want to be the parent you never had or make a shift in your life so you don't play small any longer, you will find the support and guidance in this space. My intention is for you to find answers within yourself while you listen to this podcast, so you feel the bliss of reuniting with your true essence, with self, with so much love and compassion and courage. From my heart to yours, let's keep it rockin'. My gorgeous listener, welcome to another episode on Reunite with Self podcast. I'm so happy that you are here. I am doing these series with a beautiful listener. I love her so much. Her name is Laura. We have called her Laura. So I would always give you a nickname if you ask me any questions. And from her questions, I was so amped up. Like I really wanted to talk about all the things that she was asking me because she's asking the right questions. She's asking the questions that will give you the correct answers. And they are the core of everything that might have kept you trapped or kept you playing small or, not proceed with your life and not create your incredible life and not feel fulfilled with your life and feel a lot of pain and whatever because of the narcissistic tendencies in families. And right now, I am doing two podcasts. I'm doing a podcast in Turkish, where I'm from originally, and I am doing one in English too, because I want to reach more people. Obviously, I really wanted to do the Turkish episode because in Turkey, narcissism is huge, but it doesn't mean that in the States or in Europe, it's any different. It's just the Middle East, the family dynamics are a little more tricky sometimes. And you know where it comes from. This is why I want to mention this is because in Turkey, you might go and see families and be like, oh my God, they're so close. Family relationships are so important and blah, blah, blah. What seems like air quotes, happy family might be the most dangerous trap. That's where people play so small. The ones that have the narcissistic tendency, they get the supply, they do the same patterns. And because you're supposed to be a good family girl or boy, you're supposed to accommodate it. You're supposed to forgive when it's not necessary at the moment. You're supposed to put it under the rug, find excuses, and almost behave in a way as if the narcissist is like a sick person. If it's really interesting when I have the clarity and when I look at the dynamics, it's so interesting. And you might realize this with your family or some members as well. You treat the narcissistic tendency person in your family as if they are this needy person. You're so compassionate with them. You say the right things to make them feel good about themselves or feel the courage to, do whatever they're doing or have them support them, say things that will make them feel safe in their journey in that moment. Something small, something big, doesn't matter. You can especially see it in things small. Because small things are big things, as one of my dear friends said. It's in the small moments, if you can catch those, then the big things become easier to see. it is so interesting that the narcissist hurt the empaths, the compassionate ones. But the empath and the compassionate actually has so much empathy for them that we act as if they're like sick or in need or something, or like a child, and we keep them secure, and they do the exact opposite to us, or the empaths or the compassionate. It's so interesting. Like they don't have the mercy or the compassion or the empathy to say those things that will support us in those small moments, which are big, because that's what family is for, I believe. Where like I'll talk about that, but they don't do that in small moments for us. Like and we don't expect that from them after a while. But it's so interesting that we automatically always have compassion for them or say something that's going to be supportive and empowering to them, given their story, given their situation in that moment, because it's like it's natural to us. It's easy. You don't need to be putting a lot of effort into it. It just comes out automatically. And it's so interesting that they act as if you are the problem when you communicate something that they might have done that really hurt you. And they might act as if like I didn't even like, what are you talking about? Like I would like, they act in a way that you are creating that problem. But in the first place, you wouldn't want to have that conversation with them or have that topic in your mind anyways. Like they're the one who creates them. So I'm realizing this, like the empaths are so givers. Like not just what I do when I look at the other empaths in my family, how doesn't necessarily mean that they're living their path, but just that dynamic of the narcissist and almost the dependent, that the other one, and the empath is like they do things that is necessary in that moment and it's natural, but they never expect that back from the narcissist. So yeah, I wanted to mention that. I don't even know if I did an intro, but I want to do these series with Laura's questions. And Laura, thank you so much for your courage again. I thank you so much for your courage and for asking your questions. I just want to know that, like, if you're asking these questions, if you're listening to this podcast and asking me these questions, it doesn't even matter what I'm telling you, but it just means that you're on the right path and you're going to start creating your incredible life and tell us your story that will inspire us. Like, I know you're on the path. Like, you are already on the path, whether you realize it or not. You're already doing it. Like, this courage, this wanting to create the clarity, this, like, you want it and you're taking action on it. Like it's your desire and you're doing something with it, means that you're already on the path and you're going to create clarity on everything. Everything, like the things that I don't even know. You're going to create the clarity and you're going to start taking the actions and you're going to do it yourself. Like it's going to be even more fulfilling for you because you are doing it. I just wanted to say, like, you are already on the path. And my listener, like, if you're listening to this podcast, you are already on the path. If I listened to any one of these episodes, like, my life would have changed. Not, like, it doesn't necessarily mean, and it's not just one example of, like, okay, me listening to this and changing my life completely just with one episode. I was really thirsty for it, that's for sure. Like, it would have really made a huge impact on me. But just the fact that you are doing this, that you're listening to this, that you're open to this, that you have the courage to do this, that you are putting in the effort, although it's not easy. Because the easy things are the ones that really hurt you, but they are the easy things. If you just go along with it, nobody's going to come and say, like, are you self-actualizing? Like, is there anything wrong with this family? Like, no one's going to ask you this question. It's going to be easy in that way, although it might be the most painful thing. Like, most, but it's the easy thing. The hard thing is to like break those barriers, like break those that like whatever is limiting you. constantly feel this from like, even right now, I am in the process of like breaking through things, like having a breakthrough, but like breaking through things, like it's very uncomfortable. It's challenging, but I know I'm on the right path. Like I know my path requires these things like happening to me, the things that I'm exposed to, but also it asks me to meet myself, like truly meet myself, as the podcast is called, Reunite with Self. Like I meet myself in those challenging moments now. I'm not abandoning myself. It doesn't mean that I'm doing the right things, I'm saying the right things all the time. It doesn't mean that. I make mistakes, and that just makes me human. And I have so compassion for myself, and my intention is to have so much compassion for myself, because I would have never like I would never do the things that I'm exposed to by the narcissistic tendency people in my life. And I'm uncovering, like in my story, there were people that was obvious, but now it's like more things are coming out. Like I'm realizing more like other narcissistic tendency people, and they were exposed to narcissism, but it's not the reason of their narcissism. You know, like two same people can be born into a same family, being exposed to the same kind of narcissism. Even like I believe empaths are exposed even more harshly, because the narcissists love that, because they get the supply and they're not scared. They do it more, but the like two like same siblings, and one comes out narcissistic and one comes out empathic and even more compassionate and even more loving and even more aware of the consequences of their actions. They're even more, they have more mercy, and they are more, not just even careful, it's just basically more compassionate, because they know what it feels to hurt when you feel the hurt yourself. They know that because they feel the hurt. So, my dear Laura, I'm going to start like reading your messages, keeping your privacy, of course. I always know like what keeps you what might make you feel like what makes you more visible or obvious with your story. So I always try to not like say specific places or things like that. But I'm going to start reading your message and start answering some of the questions. And I took so many notes, and Laura wrote me questions and parts of her story, and like parts of, let's say, experience information in 3 parts. And I might start from the first. Yeah, I think I will start from the first, because I want to talk about everything, because you took the time to write these, and there are so many things that can help you, that can support you. And I just want to say, like, your experience is something that that's very familiar to me. So you're not alone, and so many other people will benefit from hearing your story and my feedback on it. Because like, I don't even know what to say, because I just want to be, it's your story. It's like so valuable for me because it is your story. Once we start creating the clarity and taking actions and start seeing the changes in our lives, like I wouldn't want my story to be any different. And I just mentioned this on the Turkish podcast too. Like, the thing is that I don't want the narcissist to change. I just don't care. Like, I really don't want them to change. If God asks me today, would you want to change your past and have these people not be narcissistic? I would stop and think, but I would say I would want the exact same story. Although, like, because this life is so precious, but I also know that it's not like a one-time thing, or it's not a coincidence. So I was meant to, like, my soul was meant to go through this journey to meet myself deeper and love myself, choose to love myself when it was super challenging and very confusing. But when you create the clarity, you
you don't get confused. You're just maybe disappointed, like shocked, and like, what the F? But you don't need anyone else's confirmation anymore to decide what's happening. So you only need your own confirmation. And I actually would not want the narcissist to change. If again, the universe asks me, God asks me, like, would you want this person? And they are very important for me. Would you want them to change? I would say no. I just don't want to give up on myself. Like I just know that my thing is that I have to keep going. I just have to keep going, and keep going, meaning not just like survive or, I don't mean it that way. I mean it like keep going to my self-actualization journey. Keep going in that direction. Just keep going. Just keep being in the process of self-actualization and creating my incredible life, because I think that's like self-love, when I don't give up on myself and also make the right choices for me, although it's difficult, and especially when it's challenging, concerning the things that we were programmed with about, like, air quotes, good family or being loving with family, blah blah blah. Like I am so compassionate with myself now, and I know that I have a good heart. Like I would never do the things that I'm exposed to, even today with the narcissistic people. I would never do those things. And if I did, and if especially they told me that I break their hearts saying those things, I would have the urgency to repair so intensely. Like there would be no negotiation in my mind. I might feel shame. I might feel guilty. I might feel sad that I hurt them. It doesn't matter. Like I would not negotiate. My urgency to repair will be so big that I would not wait one night to repair. So you see that difference too with the narcissistic person and the compassionate person. And then you can tell, you can tell yourself that when you're creating the clarity, one of the hardest parts is this, that because it looks okay from outside and because we don't have the support, I still don't. I just make my own decisions in my family. Like when I have a clarity on anything narcissistic, after I go through the journey of my self-actualization and saying no and just keep going, they applaud. But when I'm in the situation, I'm not going to tell anyone, because they're not there to support me. Like they won't be able to support me, because if they were, I wouldn't even ask them the question. They would be self-actualizing, actualizing, whatever. So I would just be inspired and go on with I wouldn't need the confirmation. I would just see it. Okay, this person is doing this. This person seems to have a normal, good family, but they follow their own path no matter what. Like they had these healthy boundaries, and they just did it. They just applied, and now they're living a fulfilling life, and they're okay. Like everyone knows they're a good person. And I'm just using this like good person, bad person. Like I don't care about this, but what I want to say is like being loving is just obvious. Like, and I don't need the confirmation for that. But the challenging part is when you're creating clarity, just to feel compassion for yourself and just to understand that part, is because we are programmed in a way that the narcissistic tendency is, that dynamic is happening out, like playing out with such nuances, subtitles, just the right way, but just the right way that it works for you. And it's obvious for me. If you tell me, it's obvious. But if you just tell someone, like, being like in that matrix or whatever, like being blind to it or in denial, like they're not going to create that clarity for you. They're not going to support you in your decisions, or in your head, you will think that they won't. This is the challenging part. And this is why it is on an individual place, that you do it alone, but you are not alone anymore. You do it by yourself, but you don't leave yourself alone. You don't abandon yourself anymore, that you don't feel lonely. And I felt lonely a lot in the crowd. And so it's so different now. Like I might be by myself a lot sometimes, but I don't feel alone. But I felt such deep loneliness in places that I thought I belonged. And as Brené Brown says, it's like I sometimes I feel like I'm saying some things twice because I just recorded the Turkish podcast too, and I said some of the things, the same things too. But as Brené Brown says, I just saw it today, like when you leave your authenticity and when you think that you have to act in a certain way to fit in, like when you fit in, you don't actually belong. When you behave as exactly like how they would like it, you don't actually have the belonging either. So all the things that we do that we think will at least we give up on the authenticity, the two basic needs, authenticity and belonging. Okay, when you give up on the authenticity, you don't actually feel the belonging either. So that's why I felt deep, deep loneliness in my previous life. Like before my accident and before like I changed my life completely, I felt very deep loneliness and I couldn't make any sense of it. That was the confusing part because I was supposed to be happy. I was supposed to be grateful. And that's why I was supposed to accommodate in ways like even when I expressed something that made me hurt or that disappointed me, that made me sad, that made me angry, like that had me feel a challenging emotion to any of my family members, like I'm saying the relatives, like everyone, like the thing that I would get back was like direct sabotage, like everything everything an empathic person shouldn't hear, but everything a narcissist should hear, but everything the empathic, compassionate person already has. Like it's not where they're lacking at. It's not about, oh, like you got to love your family. It's your mom, it's your dad, it's your sibling, whatever. You don't need that. Like you already have that. And you might be using that for your disadvantage. And also you might be using it like out of alignment with love. Like it's where there is lack of love when you're abandoning yourself or when you're accommodating that stuff. It's never love. Like it's yucks. It's never love. It's where there is lack of love and you're just serving it in the name of love. But as you create the clarity, Laura, as you are more clear on, and you might realize this in two ways. You can think of like when someone says something to you in your family and you feel icky in some kind of way, that's like a sign for sure. Like your body is always telling you, or your emotions are always your compass. And it doesn't need any explanation. Like there is something yucky there. And if the person has compassion, you can express that to them and they would go for repair constantly and instantly, and they would apologize, they would be accountable for their actions, they would be understanding, they would have compassion for you, they would be willing to repair, they would be interested in this. And they would be like willing and taking the action and not say anything else that disempowers you, like as if there is something wrong with you or something, okay? This is the compassionate person. So they can make mistakes. We can all make mistakes. We will make mistakes, but we would be open to understanding because we cannot have the tolerance of hurting someone. Like knowing that what I said hurts you. Like I can't be just comfortable with it. I can't like justify it. I can't justify and just be okay with it. Like it's just doesn't make any sense. So, and with the narcissistic person, it's completely different. The first thing that we can look at is when you tell them that they've hurt you, they cannot show compassion for you. I think this is the biggest sign. Like this is something, this is a tool that I use myself a lot, and it makes so much sense now. Like it's more simple than we think, actually. So even in small moments, like seemingly small things, because small things are big things. They're just like, they just show you what might have happened in the past in big ways. But small things are big things. You can think of it this way. Like there's two ways. I was thinking about this today. You can think, okay, this person is telling me and I feel like sad about it. I feel disempowered. I feel yucky. I feel like, why would they say this thing? I would never respond to it this way. Like, okay. And you can say,
I would never say this to them if we were having this conversation the other way. I would never say this to them. This is a huge sign. Or if it's something related to an era of your life, okay? So it's something like it's about a change in your life. It's about a new thing in your life or the possibility of a new thing. Like it's about something new, okay? You can think of it this way. If they were going through the same story, if they were in the same situation as I am now, I would never say this to them. This is a huge sign too. Because sometimes I wanted to mention it because if it is concerning you going out and start this new business for yourself or, start this like as a hobby maybe on the side, and you mention this to a family member and the way they talk to you is like, I'm doing this for your good. I'm thinking of you. It's for your good. Like it's for your good. It always seems that way for it to work. We talked about this a little bit on the previous episode, I know. So they do it in a way that actually works for you because it's like in that moment, you need something empowering for sure. This is what family is for. Family is for us to feel peace, for us to have a regulated nervous system around them, for us to be able to relax and just like, the image is like lying on the couch and being like, relaxed, like vulnerable, open. You're not in a survival mode. You don't have a dysregulated nervous system. You're not trying to behave in a different way to protect yourself. And you are centered. So you are thinking around them in a way that, you're using the front side of your brain. Because they say the middle of your brain is where, like when you use for survival, for fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, like when you use for survival is the middle of your brain. And it's so interesting that the person who was abused by a narcissist, they use the middle part of their brain. And imagine like being on survival mode. It's very unloving to the body and to the consciousness. Like it's just being on survival mode is just bonkers. Like when you think about family, like, and how the system wants us to accommodate and minimize. I think minimizing even the smallest things is very unhealthy and very unloving for yourself. And so it is very unloving, period. It is just unloving when you minimize even the smallest things. And in the smallest things, because we are not triggered as high, maybe we are, by the way. I'm just like, because I have different relationship in the dynamic that I'm thinking of now, I can be more centered and see, okay, so this is an example of how they were behaving when I was a toddler or when I was a child. Like this doesn't make any sense. Like, why would they say such a thing? I would never say something like that. Like, why? Like, it's like you actually don't have the right to say that. You actually don't have the right to say that. But of course, if you're allowed to say those things, of course, that person is going to go for the very unhealthy, toxic, whatever word you want to use. Toxic even isn't the word. It's just like unhealthy, not right, not loving relationships in their adult relationships. Of course, because that's what you're saying. This is what you deserve. This is what normal is. This is what a loving family is. A loving situation requires this. And it actually requires to suppress your emotions too. Like, I can make you feel that way and you have to shut up about it and minimize it and go on and act as if like everything is fine or whatever your thing is. So what was I saying? So Laura, like when you are creating the clarity, you can think of it this way just to give yourself more support.
Like, this is a big sign, And if I'm not talking about any like mistakes, as I said, with a compassionate person, they can say something, it might hurt you. And you are, even if it's challenging to be vulnerable, you tell them how they feel, how you feel, and they understand you. They feel compassion for you. They show compassion for you instantly. They apologize. It's easy for them to apologize. It's the first thing they say. They don't want to hurt you. They never make it look as if you are the problem. Like they are accountable for their own actions. And so you feel trust around them. That's when two hearts touch. Like that's what I believe. We come closer by the mistakes we do with compassionate people. We just become closer because they see you. They see your situation deeper too. Especially if, they're not from your family, or even if they are, like they show what you went through in your life. And it just makes you human for you to feel that way, especially about things that are concerning your life, like areas of your life. So yeah, I think I'll do like the like some part of I don't want to like put it in different topics, but I want to do the series like this because I know that there's a lot of things that will come out, and just continue listening, my gorgeous listener, on the questions, because there are so many things that I want to talk about here. And again, Laura, like what you go through, millions, maybe billions, but millions of people are going through. So you're not alone. Your story is not weird. Your story is not different. Like it's so familiar to me when I read about it. And there are still things that I'm working through, and there are still moments that I'm exposed to high dose of narcissism in my family. Like I said, like from sometimes new people, but it's my path. I know it's my path, and it's going to make me stronger. It's super challenging, but my thing is that I want to be on my path. I'm not going to give up on myself for anything, because that's not even belonging. And we're going to create the family this way, like the healthy family this way. We're going to create healthy relationships, friendships. We're going to create like our financial freedom, the business that we thrive in and feel fulfilled with. We're going to be in our mission, and we're going to be able to give back to community because we are actualizing ourselves. Like this is the only way, and this is the path of love. Like this is the most loving thing that you can do, especially because it's challenging. So you're not alone. So I want to read. Laura says, I feel trapped in narcissistic relationships. I believe that my whole family are narcissistic. And this is not, this is what I'm saying. This is not surprising to me. Like this is very, very common. And I believe usually narcissism plays out differently in the two parents, like in the mom and then in the dad, like in the mother and the father. Narcissism plays out differently. Sometimes one parent is narcissistic in certain areas, and in other areas, the other parent is very disempowering in nuances, subtitles, because that's how it works, okay? It doesn't have to be extreme. If it was a little higher tone, it wouldn't have worked in your story. This is why you feel trapped in society. Like it's so, how can I explain this? I need to write these things down and read to you. This is how it works. This is why you feel trapped. This is why you might feel the shame, the guilt, the doubt, and then give up on the thing and minimize it and put it under the rug and just be in the hope mode and waiting mode for your life. Or be in the whatever mode, just like, giving up on it, or like not caring about it in that mode, but it just hurts you deeper inside. So usually it plays out like this. Another narcissism might say, you have to accommodate what the other parent is doing. That's a type of narcissism too. So it asks you to accommodate. Um, and it's like I said, you might be raised by the same parents. I said it right. I'm confused what podcast I said this now. I'm sorry. You might be raised by the same people, but one sibling, or maybe there's a couple, but let's say there is two siblings. One is very compassionate and empathic as adult, and the other one is very hidden narcissism there. And it comes out more and more in adulthood in challenging moments, challenging for them because they don't have the accountability part. They cannot be accountable for their own actions or whatever their wound is. If you have any problem about like their actions towards you and you want to express it to them, narcissism comes out, like a monster comes out, and you're like, what? Like, you're doing the same thing that my parent was doing to me. Like, how can you do this? So, our stories are not it's just their excuse to become a narcissist. People go through terrible things, really challenging things emotionally. And it's important to know that if you are constantly exposed to something, the duration is, when the duration is higher, it like the end result is like many things, but the final is the health. Like it's like the final tipping point. I was a very healthy person and I started having my health problems, and I know I'm going to overcome them. So I don't even like to talk about it a lot, but they are always the results of things that I was exposed to over time. So the trauma is it's really important to look at what happened and also for how long you were exposed to it. So the narcissistic tendency person will, or the narcissist, whatever, they keep on doing the same thing in such a long time. So what you experience today is only the tip of the iceberg. It's not just that moment, but they make it look as if you're making a big deal out of that. But it's actually, they've done things that you would have never thought of doing, especially if they're a parent and you're the child. It's just like, to see a child's face and understand their emotions is so easy. So repair was always possible, but it was never truly there. Repair is so possible. And children are easy. Adults are the problem. Children are so easy. They're so open to forgiving. They're so open to it. You can just do something small and they just forget about the problem. They're just so thirsty for that bond, for that love, for that trust. Kids are not the problem. So, Laura continues to say, and I'm sorry, Laura, like if your challenge is bigger than maybe someone else that you see, it just means that you were born to overcome that and make it your power, like make it your strength. Like narcissist plays with the empathic, compassionate, the strong. They don't care about the weak. They play, they abuse, they do things, they target the strong one. So even when you are a child, you can see the strong child, like you know that they have a gift. Everyone has a gift, but some children are so, they're born like they were adults, like they understand their parents before the parent understands them, or if ever they do. But the child understands them even when they're 3 years old. So I just want to say this, like if you're the stronger the villain, the bigger the hero, as Tony Robbins says. He always says this, like if talking about family, he doesn't talk very clearly about it, but when he talks about the family stuff, he says, like, bring it on. The stronger the villain, the worse the villain, like it's in the hero's journey too, it's in the films too. The baddest the villain, the hero is the stronger. So bring it on. It doesn't matter. Like you're going to come out of it making it your strength. Because the thing the narcissist does is things that they would never be able to overcome, especially given in those moments, in those situations. If you were doing those things to them or someone else they care about, especially, they would never be able to overcome them. It would just make them more merciless, more sadistic, more hurtful, more narcissistic. It would just blind them even more, close their heart even more, and make them even more vicious. So if you're given that journey, I am sure, like, we choose our paths. I know this. And if we're given it, if we are willing to look at the gold, although it is super challenging, I know that, like, once you start doing the things that are super scary, but you know in your heart that are the truths, and when you create the clarity for yourself, so you create the certainty for yourself, for your paths as well, it just becomes like super fulfilling. And once you begin that journey, you don't actually want the narcissist to change. I don't want them to change. I seriously wouldn't. If God asks me, like, would you want the narcissist to change today, the ones that were like given in my family, I would say, please don't. No, just, I want to be on my path, because it's super fulfilling. Like, to actually choose the hardest things, but afterwards you get the messages that you are on the right path. But after you go through that part of the journey, which is like might feel alone, you don't need anyone's confirmation, and I think we're not supposed to get that confirmation, and that's why it becomes more difficult. And that's why it's more fulfilling when you start overcoming it. And then you don't want them to change. You might feel like sad, disappointed. You might feel a challenging emotion, but you don't depend on them anymore. You don't depend on them to change anymore. You don't depend on the nice words you hope that they would say to you one day. You don't depend on them being kind to you. You don't depend on them showing you are worthy of love, because you already know you are worthy of love. You show yourself you're worthy of love when you raise your standards. Like, raising standards is such a big thing. Like, when we have high standards for our relationships, then it becomes easier to say, like, this is not what I would give to the other person, so why would I be okay with it? Like, I'm just like pissed off about this, and I don't want this to continue. So I can do something about it. I can make a change about it. I don't need to say it to them. I don't need to like express myself to them necessarily, to do the right thing, because you might feel even worse if you tell them. It just depends. Okay. It just depends on the situation, for that person, like whatever the situation in that moment, but you start listening to your heart and not depending on that, because the more you're exposed to it, the more you don't take the actions, the more they are controlling your life in a very subtle way. And that's why, like, it's so effective, because they are doing it in a subtle way. That's why you don't get the support. That's why you don't get the confirmation. That's why they make you feel like you're the problem. They create all those problems. You never wanted those things in your family. Like, it's like just bizarre for you, the stuff that they say to you, or they want you to accommodate, whatever. What was I going to say? So when you start doing the things and being the things that you want to be, like when you are on your path and you are not exposing yourself to BS in the name of love, whatever, then you don't need them to change, because you don't depend on it. But the more you're exposed to it, the more you start depending on it, because of the dynamic, like the narcissist and what is the word? Not the dependent, codependent, whatever. But you know what I mean? Like, when you're in that dynamic a lot, when you expose yourself and when it's actually affecting your life decisions and the way you behave in the world, and when, like, how you're creating your life and moving in your own path, then in a way that, like, they confuse you so much, you don't see the clarity, like, it's just changes everything.
it doesn't matter if you're taking the action or not. It matters how you are doing the things. Like if you're telling them, if you're asking for their confirmation, if you're exposing yourself to the subtitle things that they're telling you, you know, maybe they are talking about someone else, but they're saying those things to make you feel less worthy. I didn't even read your message, by the way. But yeah, I want to like continue with this series, but you can tell me like you can focus just on this or whatever, but I'll just continue doing this because then you, my gorgeous listener, or you, Laura, like you can pick up on things and be like, please, let's just talk about this sentence only, because I can make an episode on that because there are so many things I want to talk about. So Laura says, she continues, I cannot spend time with them without them finding a way to criticize and blame me for things out of the blue. Then when I decide I need to walk away from an argument that they have created themselves, I am accused of being the problem. There is literally no way out. There is a way out, Laura. There is a way out, and you are already in that path because you're realizing this. Like, imagine if you were thinking, you know, I have to find a way, like I have to make them love me. And you can't think of this, by the way. The inner child will always want this. She will always have the hope. Like it just makes you human. This will be, I think, until we die, we will always want our dad and our mom to love us the way we need it. She will always have that hope, and it's fine. I think it's very important to see her always and to honor her and to be self-compassionate when we do things from that space. But you don't depend on it anymore. And you love that child yourself with your actions because you show her, like, we're not allowing that anymore. Like, you deserve more. You are worthy. So you start creating different relationships in your life because you know that your standards can be higher and it's what you deserve because you have needs as well. Narcissistic parents are very good at caring about the third people, like the people that come to your home, for example, for a meal, or the people you meet on the street, or your relatives. They're great at serving them, and they actually ask you to serve them as well. And they look great from outside. That's why, like, they're not always black or white. They have great things about them as well. That's why it all works. So please don't find any excuse, my gorgeous listener, to minimize any of your experiences. And what you're experiencing now as an adult is only the tip of the iceberg. They did things that were very obvious. If you were an adult and watching yourself as a child, they were like easy to repair, very easy, very easy. It didn't require a lot of effort, like very easy. And you were so open to repair. So just knowing that an inner child might always want that, but don't do it from that place. Like, just knowing this in moments, if you hope for that or something, that's okay. Like, but when you are, let's say, in a loving relationship, in a romantic relationship, that person can be the thing that heals you too, because now your standards are high. And they're so loving to you. And they see, I think in healthy relationships, like man-woman relationship, let's say, heterosexual relationship, and I think it applies to all relationships, but let's say a man and a woman. In a healthy relationship, the man sees the little girl in the woman. Like, this is super healthy. The woman does that anyway, so I'm not giving that example, but if you had narcissistic mother and you are a guy, this would apply to you as well. But I want to say, like, the man would see, Laura, in your future relationship in a healthy, loving, compassionate, empowering, passionate, trustworthy relationship. The man will see the inner child in you, and you will sit on his lap and be the little girl, and they will love you, not just the woman that you are, but the little girl in you.
and it will heal you deeply. It will heal you so much because you're showing the little Laura, the little parts of you inside, that now your standards are higher and you're risking everything to go on the path. And we're going to talk about like what you can do, by the way, practically as well. But I just want to say this now, like a healthy relationship is healing. It's not what you depend on, by the way, because you already choose that path. And so that's why you would attract that kind of relationships. Because the inner child, she deserved a lot of love. Like it was easy to love her. She was so lovable and she was worthy of so much more. And also the things that she got hurt, they were so, they were really ignored and neglected, that now you can love that child. And your every action, especially your no's, mean a lot to the girl, because you start proving to her your standards are really high. It's not just what you desire or what you want, but you are doing it. Like you're risking things because you know in the end you will get what you deserve. Although it might be super challenging and unknown at the beginning, but what is unknown and familiar to us might be the most unhealthy stuff. And what you're saying this here as an example, it's a very, very, very common example. My gorgeous listener, if this is not what you're experiencing, this is only one example of a narcissist. Like it doesn't have to be this way, by the way, but this is something in romantic relationships. They come up as well in family relationships. This is a huge example of many people go through. So, and the narcissists love criticizing, by the way, like blame and criticize. They might play the victim at times, and that's what they might blame you with. They might play the game of I am thinking for your good, and whenever you want to start something new, or you just need to feel empowered in your workspace or in just life, they say the things that make you feel disempowered. And those are the things they would never be able to experience and be fine with. They would never be able to overcome them the way that you would. They had an experience maybe as they were 3 years old and they closed their heart. That was their decision. They closed their heart. They did not feel the hurt. It takes a lot of strength to feel the hurt. And the ones that can feel the hurt are the ones that are going to change this world. And they're the ones that I really admire. And they're the strong ones. They are the ones that have like so much compassion. They really care. And they also, when they self-actualize, it's like bright light. You are so mesmerized and you get so inspired by watching them because it's so obvious. It comes from a place that was really challenging. Like their stories are always coming from a very challenging background and family. And usually they have separated themselves for like 3 to 5 years from their families. Like always. They did it in some way. They might not be doing it consciously, by the way, because it was kind of easier. Like if you were an adult in the 80s or something, it was more normal. But now the family thing, that's why I was mentioning the Turkish example. Sometimes some of the relationships got even like as if it's closer, but that's why it's more controlling. And that's why it's very abusive, like deeply abusive for men and women both. Very abusive. And it's done in such nuances that people coming from outside, they call it like, oh, you have a great family, and you feel even more terrible. And it's just nonsense. But, like compassionate people come along your journey and they confirm like 100% right away, just because you have started giving that confirmation to yourself, and just because you're on the path already, just because you're taking that risk. But you do it in a way that's smart. You don't have to be homeless or whatever. You can do it in a way that is smart, because what they have been doing to you to manipulate you, if they've got some power, you don't deserve that. So we'll talk about this, and you can ask me more questions on that too. So let's continue a little bit, and then I'll end the episode. The worst thing is, Laura says, she continues, the worst thing is I have no support. And when I met someone in the healing industry, in air quotes, they turned out to be a confirmed sexual predator. I remember you saying that people in narcissistic families will attract narcissistic romantic relationships, and I couldn't see how I would want to be in a relationship with someone like that, but I did. And the most unlikely person. So all I attract is betrayal over and over again, and it feels like there are no safe people. I have some questions that you can answer in a podcast if you want. So, Laura, I want to end this here with some notes about the romantic relationships. And I took notes here too. So, a few things. First thing, I would never want you to create any limiting beliefs about men in general just because of your past experiences. I know that you know this is the right thing in your heart for sure. And if you had those limiting beliefs, like if you created them for a while, please, like, I can feel your tears. Like, please have compassion for yourself. It's because of like that inner child really hurting. And our experiences should never create walls around us, because it might feel as if we are protected, but they also keep us from living our lives to the fullest, because there are amazing men in this world and there are assholes in this world, but there are amazing relationships. There are amazing men. There are amazing women. Like we have that spectrum, the whole thing. I always tell myself, like I was always telling this myself, I can never be an exception. Like I can never be that special. If you are a loving, compassionate person, if you have a vision about the romantic relationship that you want to experience, there is someone wanting that with you too. Maybe you haven't met yet. Maybe you met yesterday. I don't know. But we cannot be that special. There is so many of us. But I want to tell you this example that this one person was telling. It makes so much sense to me. So in my past romantic relationships, I have chosen the most toxic, unhealthy, like obviously very unhealthy, like very sadistic, very, just very unhealthy. But I was being exposed to such narcissism in my family. What they were doing to me and how they were making me feel was exactly the same feeling. The emotions were the same. And it worked because the stories were different. Like most of the story was different of how my family was being narcissistic towards me. That's why it worked. Like, I don't know, just like maybe a stupid example, like maybe not a very smart example, but if your father is an alcoholic and if you're only attracting alcoholic men, and the way they treat you, the things that they tell you is the same things, you might wake up earlier. Depends on the situation, by the way. But you might wake up earlier and be like, this is exactly what I went through. I don't want this. This is not love. But it might, like narcissism works in ways that like our subconscious, like it's so mysterious, but when you start creating clarity, you understand, like it becomes super clear, like how they made me feel, how unworthy, how unsafe they made me feel, like that core like uncertainties, core unworthiness, core unsafety, even around your closest. It was so similar. It was the same exact thing because I felt as helpless as I was in my family, but no one was supporting me in my family. But they might see some guy I was involved with and say, oh, this guy is like not right. This is unhealthy for you. But I felt even I felt even more lonely in those moments. And I'll tell you why. Because the things that I was being exposed to since I was a baby, that I was so vulnerable, those people would never come and say those things. Those people would never, at those like meal tables,
protect me or say something back to the narcissist. Like, how the fuck dare you say this? Like, how the fuck? Like, this exact thing is the thing that will break her heart and will disempower her. Like, how the fuck? Like, 1 + 1 = 2. Like, the thing that you're doing is the thing that will break her. That will make her feel unworthy. That will keep her confused as if she's not capable of doing that thing. Whatever it is. Like, it was always obvious, but they never protected me. They would never, if I went to them and said, this person is doing this to me, they would never hug me, like give me a hug first and let me feel my emotions. And they would never support me. They would say something that would ask me to abandon myself. 100%. Even today, I do everything myself and then they applaud. But I go through it myself because it's super scary for people. But when you do it, you become the example. An example of a younger person, whoever needs it. Not to everyone, because not everyone wants to change their lives. Some people love their problems, but the ones that really have a gift inside, that want to give back to the world, that want to give back to other people, they want to, like, they know they got gifts, and with their energy, they want to use that, and then how they will feel fulfilled. I was in very narcissistic relationships, but they were all a result of my family stuff. And if I just focus on the romantic relationships, I would have never solved it. I would have never solved it, because even if I was with someone healthy, I would never be able to live the fullest potential of that relationship because of the cords that I had with the narcissistic people in my family still, even though I was an adult woman. Because there would be always something missing, no matter what, like whatever that guy was giving me, there would be always something missing. And that's what people don't understand. Like, you might have everything in the world, but still something might be missing because of the family stuff that you are in denial with. And it takes a courageous heart and a loving heart to create that clarity, because being in denial is never love. And I was going to give you this example, which made so much sense to me, just so that you're compassionate with yourself. Before you create the clarity, when they give you 100, you're a woman and you are heterosexual and you choose to be with men, they give you 100 men in front of you. Your subconscious will go and pick the one that will be truly sadistic and narcissistic towards you. And 90 of those men can be really healthy. And, not just healthy, like people that you can desire and be, have a trusting relationship and a safe relationship. But your brain goes and picks, and I believe your subconscious puts you in those spaces. Like they create, like it's such like a mystery, but your subconscious makes you go places and meet those people for sure. Like you create those experiences as well. But they put 100 men in front of you. Your subconscious, if you're not woken to the fact that there is high narcissism in family and they're doing it on purpose, and we'll talk about that as well. It doesn't have to be consciously taking action, but they're doing it on purpose. Like it serves a system, let's say. And we'll talk about this, but your brain will go and pick that one because it's so familiar from the beginning. Like in 10 seconds, maybe it's even less, but in like first 6 seconds or something, that this person will make you miserable, and they're almost like a gift. They come and like do whatever. But if you are open this time, that big slap, like that big thing, whatever it is, it just there to wake you up to what the hell you've been accommodating and saying okay to. They're like on a soul level, not just like not saying anything for them, not saying anything positive about them, but just on a soul level, they're like screaming, like, look at your worth. Like, see your worth, be aware of your worth, see what you are accommodating, see what you're saying yes to. This is what's familiar to you. This is what you have been accommodating in the name of love, and this is what they ask from you. The narcissistic dynamic in your family. It's not just the people. That dynamic asks you to be okay with it. It's just like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It has nothing to do with love. So this is why we go and pick those people we might have in the past. But you change that as you raise your standards. I'll tell you this. Those people you might meet, narcissistic men, narcissistic women every day. You meet them, but you don't desire them anymore. They're not interesting to you. It's just like even like stupid or, childlike, or just like you can feel it, whatever their thing is, the narcissistic tendency, character, personality. It won't be attractive to you anymore because it's not attractive to you in the family anymore. It just changes the whole thing. Like, we'll talk about it, but it's not going to be something that even if you go on a date or something, you're not going to continue. You're not going to accommodate. You're not going to tolerate. You're not going to be in a serious relationship. Like, you're not going to give them much time. You're going to be like, oh, next, like, I'm not interested. This is not love. Like, it's not interesting to me. It's really interesting to you when it's something very familiar to you, because you think that love can be possible that way, because that's what your closest ones asks from you. So I love you, Laura, so much. I'll see you all on the next episode. You can always ask me your questions, and so I can create episodes based on a specific thing that we mentioned here, or I might not have mentioned here. I love you so much. You're all on your path. I love you. I'll see you next week. My gorgeous listener, if you had any takeaways from this episode or from this podcast in general, I would love to know. Please share this episode with a few loved ones right now. You never know how they can benefit from something so small. And please take a screenshot of this episode and share on IG, tagging me at Khewella. That is Khewella. Khewella. That is my goddess wear brand, my Instagram page. I would love to know what your takeaway was, or something you found inspirational, or a confirmation you believe in as well. That would make my day. And you can always DM me if you have a topic or a certain question in mind that you want me to talk about. And give me a 5-star rating if you feel like it. That would help this podcast immensely to get the word out. I love you. See you on the next one. I want to see you shine your brightest.